Hello everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome back to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I'm here with another weekly wrap up. These are going to be all the books that I read from the 14th through the 20th. And I have a new absolute favorite, as you've probably seen in the graphic, a new 6-star. Absolutely excited to talk about this one. And then I have a couple not so great ones, one I'm probably going to rant about. So let's go ahead and dive into my weekly reads. Okay guys, so let's go ahead and dive into my weekly reads. Before I do, real quickly, if you are new to my channel or you haven't already, please make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, comment, leave me a like. All of it definitely helps my channel. The first book, we're going to start off with the good one, the amazing one, the 6-star read. So I'm not bearing the lead. I'm telling you right off, this book blew me away. And this is Forever Your Rogue by Erin Langston. This is my first book by her. I actually got this annotated by Jen from the Bookreviews because I am part of her Patreon, and you know, I get annotated books, and I saw that she really loved this one last year. It was one of her 6-star reads, one of her best books of the year. And I saw her even get emotional while talking about it. So I was like, I have to have that book. And I wanted her thoughts. So I did get her annotated copy, which is always amazing. Side note, anyways, this is honestly the perfect historical romance. I find it so hard to find current authors or like newer historical romance authors where it's like really good historical romance. I love historical romance, and Erin Langston did such an amazing job with this book. Like, I just fell in love with these characters. It was so romantic, so angsty. Absolutely loved it. So, the setup, I should probably get into it. We have Nate Travers and Cora. And Cora is a widow. She did not have a happy marriage, but she is a widow. She had 2 kids with her husband, but there are laws that, like, he basically did not leave her in charge or have the custodial power or whatever it's called at this time of her own children. He basically gave that to his sister and her husband, who were awful, horrible, disgusting people. And so they're basically kind of threatening Cora that they're going to take her kids because they have the right to the kids. And she does not want to lose her children. She is like not typical mothers at that time, where she spends a lot of quality time with her children. They think of it as coddling. She adores her children. They're everything to her. And so she's trying to find a way out of this. Her brother works in law, and he's trying to find a way out of this situation so they can kind of appeal or contest these horrible people taking her kids. Her kids would be miserable if they lived with these people. So they had brought up her not having a father figure or a man, and so she decided she was going to get a fake fiance. And who better than Nate? Nate is her best friend's brother, that they kind of had like a really great friendship and stuff going on. She, you know, really liked him, but he is a rogue, or a cad, or a rake, as you would call it. And he's got lots of gambling debts. He's kind of in hot water. His older brother basically had to kind of raise him and his sister from a younger age and he had to take responsibility because their father was a mess. And I absolutely love his brother, even though he comes off strict and like getting after his, you know, Nate. It's all out of a place of love and trying to get Nate's shit together. So she thinks he's a rake. We could just set up this, you know, fake relationship, fake fiance type of thing, and then to get rid of these people. And then eventually, like, once we get our case set up, you know, we can break up or whatever. And she offers basically like take care of his debts and all that. So what ends up happening is Nate goes out to live with her, with these people kind of being there too, because they're going to stay for the summer. She's very stressed out about them staying at the house. They're kind of like just trying to catch her doing something wrong and come after her. And so he ends up staying up there, and it's like in the country. It's away from all his problems with like gambling and stuff. And they kind of have this fake relationship, fake engagement. But they've had like kind of like interest in each other in the past. He is completely like falls in love with her and her kids, and the kids were so amazing in this book. A lot of times books get that wrong, but the kids were just as important in this book, because you really have to watch Nate realize he has such a huge character arc, character growth, the things he goes through. He learns how to become a man, like what's important, and he really falls for Cora and her kids. And it's like he considers them like his family. These are his kids by the end of this. And it is just so fucking beautiful. It is so romantic. I mean, there's so many great, like, amazing special scenes between these two that you feel the romance. You feel it building. You want them to be together. There's so much longing between them, and, like, the slight touches. It reminds me of, like, Pride and Prejudice, where even in the Pride and Prejudice movie where, you know, Darcy lifts her up into the carriage, and it's, like, just that slight handhold, and he's doing this, and it's, like, it's everything. So that's what it was reminding me of. Like, these two really have longing for each other. But she has a lot of trust issues because of her marriage and everything that went on. And so I was just dying for these two together. And then by the time they do, it is so freaking spicy. Nate Travers is like one of my favorites now. He is definitely one of the top reformed rakes. But it's so much more than that. It was just so beautiful, like the relationship, the slow growth, like them really falling in love with each other, and then him really realizing kind of he's been a loser and a fuck up, and also the relationship that he rebuilds with his brother. And there's some amazing conversation between him and his brother that just, like, oh my God, I cried multiple times in this book. It moved me. I didn't want it to end. Like, the writing was so good, and I am such a huge fan that I can't wait, because there's a novella that, like, is about his brother, so I can't wait to go to that. The epilogue was so beautiful. I could go on and on about this. This is one of my favorite reads of the year. 6 stars. I gave it 3 chilies, because it does have amazing spice for historical romance. And I'm just so excited to read more from this author, because I was blown away by this. Like, I love a man who falls for another man's kids, you know, like they're not his kids, but he raises them like his own. And a man that, like, wakes up and becomes responsible and, like, there for his woman. Like, this man is devoted to Cora and his kids. And I just love it, you guys. I love it. This was so beautiful. There's all these great letters in it. There's just amazing. It's perfection. I freaking loved it. So if you have not read this yet, I highly recommend it. I actually think it might be available on Kindle Unlimited, but I actually got the annotated copy, so I physically read this one. But this is a highly recommended book. Absolutely love it. Okay, so the next few that I'm going to talk about are actually Rina Kent's trilogy. So I cannot say a lot about this Deception trilogy, because there are so many, like, reveals, twists, like a cliffhanger that's a big reveal that changes the whole story. So I don't want to give any of that stuff away. So I'm going to briefly give you, like, kind of the setup of the first one and my ratings and stuff. But as you guys know, I do a vlog for all these Rina Kent books that I'm reading, because I'm reading her backlist. So I should have a vlog going up soon. I don't know if I'll put it up this week or next week, but if you want more details on each of the book, I will give them to you there. So anyways, the first one that I started with was Dark Deception. This was 0.5, so it's kind of, I don't even know, really want to count it, but it's a novella. It's called a prequel. You have to download it from the author's site, and then so I read it, and you really don't know anything that's going on. It's very short. It's confusing. But when I went on to the first book, it's basically the first part of the first book. So you do not need to read this. I'm just putting it out there that I got conned on that. Like, I think it's a way to get you to the author's site or, like, on her to subscribe to her stuff. So anyways, I'm not really going to go into that. I think I gave it 3 stars because it's like a novella with like just confusing stuff. So Vow of Deception is the first book. And so I'm going to go ahead and set up this book for you because the other 2, if I explain what happens in those, it's going to completely give things away and like the cliffhanger at the end of this one. So in Vow of Deception and this Deception trilogy, this is about Adrian. We have seen him in previous books that have centered around this Bratva. And he is very fascinating. He's very controlled. He's comes off almost psychopath, but he is extremely smart. He's very high up in the Bratva, and he doesn't really it's because he has like the system that he uses. He's always 5 steps ahead of other people. He's very methodical and has people involved everywhere. Like he's just really high up in the Bratva and important to the pecan. And basically in this, you have a girl named Winter, and she is homeless. She is living on the streets. And she was kind of like, she was going to be like physically assaulted by this homeless. It was like this guy that ran this homeless shelter, but he was like high up. It was just one of his charity type of things. And he has ties to the Bratva. And so she was living on the streets, got attacked by him, like went off. It was at one of the shelters. And she kind of came back and found out that he had been killed. And they thought she did it. So she kind of freaked out, was like hiding in a garage. And that's when Adrian finds her, and he basically tells her, you're wanted for this murder, but I can clean it up for you, but basically I need you to be my wife. And he shows a picture of his wife, and they look exactly alike. So it's kind of like a doppelganger type of thing where she looks exactly like his wife. And there's a lot of mystery of like what happened to his wife. Is she dead? Where is she? And she does not want to do this, but she is forced to do it. It's either that or she's going to go to prison. And so she decides to do it. And so she goes and basically plays his wife. Now, what's interesting about Adrian is he's very private. He's kept his wife separate from like the Bratva a lot, where like nobody really knows what's going on with her. So you were kind of wondering what was going on with his wife when you read the previous books. But in this is highly a BDSM thing too. A lot of it is a lot of spankings and punishments, and she gets turned on by the spankings, and so it's a lot of that. Like a lot of the book kind of got a little repetitive with me. I could see the twist coming of, you know, what happened with the wife and all that kind of stuff, but there is a huge cliffhanger at the end. There is also, they had him and his wife Leah, they had a son together, Jeremy. And so Winter builds this like really a beautiful connection to Jeremy, and she just feels really bad for him because he lost his mom. And so I loved their dynamic and their relationship. And so a big cliffhanger happens, and it totally turns the story on its head. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I mean, I did see the twist coming. It wasn't a huge surprise to me, but that didn't bring it down for me. It was kind of a mess. It was like all over the place. But again, it was the first book out of a trilogy. Now, I will say, I thought the second book, which the second book was Tempted by Deception, I didn't like this book. So this book took me a while to get through, and I'm not going to say why because I don't want to give anything away, but I thought it was pretty pointless. I thought we didn't need this book. It could have been a duet. And so I was like skimming a lot of this book. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars, 3.5 chilies. Oh, the previous one is 3.5 chilies. And then the last book was Consumed by Deception, which I can't say anything about because I'll ruin it for you guys. But I ended up giving this one 4 stars. It was much, much better than the second one. But I was a little irritated by the second one, and I was kind of tired of the couple. And I thought that this could have been a duet, and it would have been a 5-star read for me. So I ended up giving it 4 stars. So if you guys do want more information or more details on the books before you want to read them, definitely check out my vlog. I will be posting that soon, and I'll give you all the deets there. Okay, so then I read Tempting Auzed, sorry. Tempting Auzed. And this is the 4th book in the Clarkanian series. This is by Victoria Aveline. And I really love this world. I love this alien series. It's got a lot of great world building. And in the previous book, there were 2 girls that they had been captured in the series. Some humans were captured by aliens and brought to this planet. That's against the laws and everything, so they can't return home with like even the good aliens, because you know Earth isn't aware of these other planets or anything, so they can't send them home. But they are having issues with mating, and so they have different mating customs and marriages and all that kind of stuff to be able to mate. So they're having issues with that. So they brought these humans to the planet to try and test out if they could mate with them, and they can, and they are discovering that there are fated mates now. So in the previous book, 2 of the girls, after they were rescued from this facility where they were testing them and everything and captured, they ran off into the wood, like the forest, because they did not trust these aliens. Even though they were rescuing them, they just didn't trust it. And so in that previous book, Alex got split up from, I think it was Lily, I can't remember her name, but they got split up in the forest, and so she was on her own. So in this, Alex is trying to survive, trying to get somewhere in this forest, and this monster attacks her. And Auzed is actually one of the kind of like soldiers that work for this kind of queen that is letting these women come stay and try to like find their own mates and not forcing them into these mating customs kind of thing. So he's tasked with finding the girls that were out there. And so he finds her, he saves her from this monster, but he ends up killing it. And the problem with that is they are actually in the Sovereign territory, which is not his territory, and it's a crime to kill these monsters. So they end up getting caught and taking to the Sovereign like territory, which I really thought was interesting. It was like these kind of like trees and tree houses, and it was just a cool little different world than what we saw in the previous books. And so he's in a lot of trouble with them, and Alex is worried, so she kind of tells them, oh, we're getting married, like, because she wanted to help like save him kind of and get him out of trouble, but also not be forced into like their mating customs, because they see this human, they see a big opportunity, and all the men there like want to meet the human and see if they match with her or mate. So Auzed was pretty irritated by this because he's a soldier and he can't be getting married, and he's worried about like it getting back to them, and there's just all this kind of back and forth. But these 2 are like so into each other, and there's a lot of mutual, you know, pining here going on. And so they're forced to stay there for a while so that all the men can meet her, and that way at least see if somebody is like her mate. But like basically she just wants Auzed. So this one was pretty like slow burn. It took a long time for them to finally get together, but it was very spicy. I did really enjoy this one a lot more than the last couple, because I mean, even though this one had issues too, where she was worried about going home, it's because she didn't think Auzed really wanted her. But the other ones were like kind of like that girl that doesn't want to commit and committing the rest of my life, and it just gets old for me. So I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars and 3.5 chilies. Okay, so then I read the Daring and the Duke by Sarah MacLean. This is the 3rd and final book in the Bare Knuckle Bastard series. And I had really high expectations for this one. I think I gave the previous 2 books 5 stars. I really enjoyed them. I thought they were really romantic, spicy, and very different. And so in those books, Ewan had betrayed his brothers and Grace when they were younger. It's really hard setup to explain, but like this father had basically, you know, didn't have a son, so he had these bastard sons, so he basically raised them and put them in a competition to become his heir and all that stuff. And Grace was actually not his daughter, but the wife had like had an affair, and so she was part of this group too. It's kind of confusing, but basically he betrayed them to become the heir, and so they kind of went off on their own and became the Bare Knuckle Bastards. he is basically kind of the villain in the last couple books. He's done some pretty bad things. He thinks that Grace died and he blames them, and he was in love with Grace as a child. They were like very in love, but she was completely betrayed by him and what he did to become the heir. And so she has basically been living as this other woman, running like kind of like a pleasure house kind of thing, and more catered to women in society. And I really liked that. I thought it was cool. She was very not like your typical heroine you read in historical romance. She was like wearing pants and like boots and a corset and stuff, and she was pretty badass. She was a fighter too, so that was very different. So I did like that. I just thought this was so boring, and I feel really bad. I listened to the audiobook and it just was dragging for me. So I think if I even physically read it, I would be even more bored. I just didn't think there was enough of a grovel from Ewan, because he does arrive back, finds out that she's alive, and he wants her back. And she basically beats the crap out of him, and then it's like a year later and he's back again and he's gonna try and get her. So I just didn't think there was that much groveling. She kind of caved pretty easy to him, and I wanted more of a character arc, like a redemption kind of thing, and I just felt like it was just kind of missing the stuff that I wanted. And it might be because I was highly anticipating this one and I had really high expectations, but it just kind of fell flat for me. So I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. And then I can't remember, I think I put it at like 2.5 chilies. I can't remember. Sorry, I didn't put it down here. Okay, so on to the one that I'm going to be complaining a lot about. This might be a rant coming. We'll see how angry I get, but I was pretty pissed off with this book. And I read Hush Hush by Lucia Franco. And let me just start off by saying I love Lucia Franco. I think she's an amazing person. I felt really bad rating this book like I did, but I have to be honest and I have to give it to you guys real, and this book was horrible to me. This is an escort romance, and I say romance with, no, it's not. This isn't a romance. It's an erotic book with a lot of sex in it and stuff like that, but I don't call this a romance at all. But in this, we have, what's her name again? Oh, Aubrey. And she is her best friend. Her best friend's rich, but this setup, okay. Her best friend, they go to college together. They live like pretty well because their best friend's rich, but then she doesn't want money from her family. So she's become an escort. And her friend, Aubrey, just finds out about this because, you know, her friend tells her the truth about what she's doing, and hey, instead of working these multiple jobs that you're doing, you could be an escort and you can make really good money. And so Aubrey decides to try it, and so she becomes an escort. And I mean, we don't even get to the hero of this book till like 30%. So a lot of it was like building up her becoming this escort, all these weird sexual things she's doing, or clients that she has to be with. And anyways, so she meets James, and James is much older than her, kind of like a silver fox, very daddy material, and she's very into him. They kind of go on a date where he like didn't really have sex with her or anything, but she went to an event with him, and so she's immediately like smitten with this guy. And then she also happens to meet this guy at a coffee shop just as herself, you know, and they go on dates. So this is where I get really irritated, because she meets this guy. He's a doctor. She seems like, oh, okay, I should like this kind of guy. I should try to date, even though I just have one night stands. I just think sex is sex and blah, blah, blah. Like, whatever, honey. So she goes on a date with this guy, and this guy straight up tells her about how he was engaged before and his fiance cheated on him with his best friend. And so to him, that is like no-go. Like, that's an immediate, we're done. And he tells her all he wants is like loyalty, honesty, and like that, you know, you're not cheating on him. And that's like his big thing. This his big thing that is important to him, is that you're faithful. And what does she do? She doesn't tell him that she's an escort. she's like, oh, well, I don't want to tell him that yet. I'll wait till we're together a while. Then I'll let him know. Even though he tells you literally like first, second date, like that's where I draw the line. I cannot be with somebody who's cheating on me and you keep that from him. That's so fucking wrong. Like this woman. So basically, I gotta say, I hated every character in this book. None of them had redeemable qualities. I did not like our heroine. I think she is one of the most selfish pieces of shit that I've read. She's so selfish. She literally like keeps this boyfriend around while she's with James too. And she doesn't even love him. She's just kind of like, oh, I'm not that into him, but I'll keep him around. And it's so fucking wrong. So there's a lot of cheating in this because James is also married. And guess what? It's her best friend's dad. And when she finds out that it's her best friend's dad, she does the, oh, we can't see each other anymore kind of bit. And he basically like follows her and demands that they be together. He does not even give a shit that it would hurt his daughter. He's married. The daughter has literally had conversations with her about her mom and dad and their problems in their marriage, and they're going to therapy and blah, blah, blah. And like she said nothing and then still continued to see him. So like he basically gives her, I don't know if it was like $10 million to be his like exclusive escort, and he wants her to quit the job and she has to break up with her boyfriend. Does she break up with her boyfriend? Nope. So she basically tells him she broke up with her boyfriend, keeps seeing the boyfriend, lying to the boyfriend about being an escort and fucking this other guy for like $10 million, lying to her best friend who keeps talking to her about her mom and dad, and you know, her friend does not have a good relationship with the father, and it's just, it is so freaking wrong. Like this woman is horrible. Plus, she has this grandma that is obviously dying. Like she's sick and she loves her grandma so much. She loves her grandma, but she never, like, there's only a couple visits with her grandma in this book, and like here she's getting like $5 million, the $10 million. Does she offer to like pay her grandma so she could have a better doctor, better at-home care? Then she's like, why do you have a nurse? Why is it, and then like an at-home nurse? It's like, because she's on hospice. She's so clueless. She's so selfish. And she should have been putting that money into giving her grandma better care because her grandma was so important to her. So basically, I hated the heroine, and like the hero I didn't even like too. And so like when of course they're gonna get discovered and found out by the friend, I was like on the friend's side. Like, you guys are pieces of shit. And so I just freaking hated this. And you don't even have them back together, like her and James, till like the epilogue. So I was like, what the fuck is this? So honestly, I don't get how this is a romance. And so many people had this as 5 stars. Like, it's literally just about this selfish chick hooking up and making a bunch of money as an escort and using people around her. I hated it. So I gave it 2.5 stars because still it is Lucia Franco. I do like her writing, but I just don't get this romance. I don't think it's a romance. But anyways, I think I gave it 3.5 chilies because honestly, the spice wasn't even good. There's a lot of spice, but I just didn't care about it. So anyways, didn't enjoy that one. Okay, so the last book that I read was The Accidental Dating Experiment. I listened to this. It was on Audible Plus, and it is by Lauren Blakely. And this one was super cute, low angst, kind of rom-com. I don't read a lot of rom-coms, as you're aware if you watch my channel a lot. But I really enjoyed this. I listened to it while I was cleaning the house, and it was a quick, easy, very low angst, sweet rom-com. And in this we have Monroe and Juliet, and they are friends. They run a podcast. They co-host a podcast together about like relationships. You know, he's a doctor, and it's like kind of like a relationship expert type of thing. But I kind of found it weird that they co-hosted this kind of podcast when Juliet can't like find a guy to save her life. She has really bad dating experience, so that's what she's bringing to the table. And he doesn't really, he had been divorced and he wasn't totally into like the whole marriage and like thinks he can commit kind of thing. So I'm like, how are you guys experts? But anyways, They basically had a fling like 8 years ago. He's her like brother's best friend, but like they were going to be in different states, and so they didn't really pursue it. And so she was really let down by that, and just, you know, they kind of never talked about it. Even though they're best friends and running a podcast together, they just don't talk about that, which I felt that was kind of weird. But so they end up getting gifted like this cute little like cottage in this small town where they grew up, and by one of their like super fans, because she found her love, and so she gifted it to them. So they kind of go up there for the week to kind of look at the place, see if they can like sell it, fix it up a little bit. And so they are going to be staying there together. And this place was pretty interesting. It was like had big, like I think king size bunk beds, and then they had like mirrors on top. So it's a very kinky, spicy house. And so that was kind of funny. And so she basically they decide to do this dating experiment because her mom wants her to start like try dating at the small town. And so he doesn't want her dating anybody because he really wants her, but he's never made the move. So they come up with this dating experiment where she'll pick a guy online, but instead of setting up a match with him, he'll role play as that guy, so that he can kind of teach her the red flags or like douches, or how the date would go. And so they do this, and basically this forces them to kind of acknowledge their feelings for each other. And of course they finally start to connect and get it on. And it was very spicy once it got to the sexy times. It was great. So I mean, I don't really have a lot to complain, but it didn't blow me away, but I thought it was really cute. It was great narration, had a great time. So I gave this one 4 stars and 3 chilies. Okay, so those are all the books that I read this week. Thank you so much for watching this. As always, I will see you on the next one.